All right, guys, thank you so much again for tuning in to Sacramento Horror Film Festival. And right now, we have another awesome guest for you guys to enjoy listening to some stories from. This dude has done pretty much any kind of monster, creature, horror, fantasy, comedy, all of the above. It is my pleasure to bring in special effects makeup artist Howard Berger. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just looking at the stuff behind your head. All looks pretty cool.
Oh, thanks, man. It
Yeah.
is, my little horror vault that
Yeah.
I've accumulated. Um, well, Howard, like I said in the introduction, your filmography it needs no real explanation. I should say you have worked on pretty much anything and everything when it comes to the world of horror. Freddie, Michael, Jason,
Everybody. Yeah. Yeah. Really, the only like horror icon I never worked with was Pinhead, actually, which, because we did Friday the 13th. Yeah, we did Jason, we did Michael Myers, we did Freddie, of course. I mean, it's a Leatherface. So, as far as all that stuff goes, that was all the good old 80s, into the early 90s and stuff, which was fun. I mean, it was really fun to be involved with those iconic characters. And I think the first time I dipped my toe into that world was when I worked for Kevin Yeager. And he asked me to go apply Robert Englund's makeup for Freddy for Nightmare 4. It was great. I mean, it was a great opportunity. I got to, of course, work with Robert for like 3 months solid and do this really cool makeup. And, Kevin Yeager, who's a super genius makeup artist and just overall artist, trusted me with his baby. So, and I was just talking to Kevin recently about it because I was saying how much I always loved the Freddy from Part 2. I thought was really, really super cool. And then it kind of lost it in 3. It kind of got a little just soft, and Kevin felt the same way. And then Kevin resculpted it for Part 4 and added in that Part 2. Like, I really loved the skull, and the contact lenses. We didn't do the lenses because Robert wasn't up for it. But, I always thought it's funny how that character is so iconic because you really don't see him in the first movie. In Nightmare 1, it's almost a silhouette. And then when Kevin got hired, we were all working at Stan Winston's working on Aliens, and Kevin got a call to interview, and he got Nightmare 2, and he redesigned the makeup, which I thought was superb, and then kept going and going and going and going. It's 100 Nightmare things.
That's funny that you mentioned Nightmare 2 as kind of a way to get excited to do 4, because he is terrifying in Nightmare 2.
Yeah, he's actually, that was the time when he was scary. I mean, he wasn't, I hate to say it, but like he kind of became a game show host, with little, here you go, meatball and things like that. Yeah. But Nightmare 2, I mean, he's a real threat, and his main objective is to just be a murderous killer. So, I loved the first one. I remember Greg Nicotero and I, we were in Pittsburgh. We were working on Day of the Dead for Tom Savini. And we had heard about this movie, Nightmare on Elm Street. And at the time, New Line Cinema was very small. And they had just made 100 prints that were traveling around the United States. So by the time it got to Pittsburgh, it was all chopped up and ground up, and you could see 100 splices through it. But Greg and I, we went to the theater in North Hills in Pittsburgh, and we saw it, and we were just like, this is such a great, great movie. We were really blown away because we had never seen anything like that before. And little did we know we'd end up working on those movies, quite a few, like, Nightmare. Greg and Bob worked on Nightmare 3, and then I did Nightmare 4, and then KNB did 5, 6, and then the new Nightmare that Wes Craven did. That was the last one. And I also worked on Freddy's Nightmares, and then did tons of like personal performances or whatever with Robert around the country. We'd go and do makeup. He'd go do Freddy at like the Halloween Haunt in Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh, right on.
And then we'd clean them up and then go to the next city, So it was really, really fun. It was super fun times,
Do those people, when you're doing that kind of stuff, do they realize that the Freddy that's scaring them in the house is Freddy Krueger? Or
yeah,
idea?
Yeah. I mean, Robert, what it would do is he'd open up if it was like a Halloween Haunt, we'd go opening night, and he'd be a guest star, and he'd be like, ladies and gentlemen, Freddy Krueger, and Robert would come out, and he does this. He has a very specific walk. He kind of walks like a sidewinder, which is also. I'll tell you another story about when they tried to anybody could play that part. We can get a stunt guy to play it, which is untrue. And so Robert would walk out and do his whole thing, and he's just so good. And we would do it for a couple hours, and then clean Robert up and go have dinner or something. And but on Nightmare 4, the first day of shooting was in the junkyard, and I showed up, and Robert wasn't there, and it was a stunt guy, and I was like, and they wanted me to do the makeup on the stunt guy, and I called Kevin Yeager, and I said, do you want me to do this? And he's like, yeah, do it. Don't worry, they're going to reshoot it because Robert has a specific, body language, and they're just not going to get it. And so we shot like a couple days, and they, Bob Shea saw it and went, this is all terrible, and pay Robert what he wants, get him back, because Robert's the only Freddy Krueger. But they did that on every single movie. They're like, we're not paying Robert that amount of money or giving him this deal, so we can have anybody can play Freddy. It's just a guy in a burn makeup, and it's like, it's not. It's so much more. Same with when you talk about Kane Hodder playing Jason, it's a real specific thing. Like John, he has a whole method to his movements, and it's the people aren't replaceable. I mean, Leatherface, obviously a lot of people, or a handful of people played Leatherface, R.A. and Gunner and so forth. But that's a little different, that's actually, it's not a supernatural character, Leatherface isn't. Which I think that there's just something that Robert and Kane came up with for their versions of Freddy and Jason that are real specific. Every time I see a movie, I'm like, oh, that's not Kane. That's not. Oh, that shot's terrible. That's a stunt guy.
That's one of those things too with, like something like Friday the 13th with Jason. Jason kind of goes through like an evolution. By the time, Kane is the wrecking machine, but then when CJ's Jason and they do that whole Frankenstein thing, he's like an otherworldly monster at that point, where Freddy is Freddy. Like Robert Englund is Freddy. Like they tried to do it with Jackie Earle Haley and that whole other take, and no disrespect to that, but I mean, you can't replace Robert Englund really as Freddy Krueger. But
you can't pass the glove down.
Yes. You mentioned Greg's name and KNB EFX Studio, which if you're listening to this and you have no idea who that Greg is, when we say Greg Nicotero, the last 10 years has been attached to one of the most successful shows on television, not just horror television, which you have also been doing a lot of work with in that regard. And of course, we're talking about Walking Dead. But going back to the beginning of you guys creating that studio, like you guys were buddies beforehand. Like, how did that all start?
Well, we met. I got hired. I was 18 years old. I got hired to go work on Day of the Dead. I lived in Los Angeles, and I had worked with. I was working at a place that a guy named John Beekler ran, and one of the guys that worked there was a friend of mine, John Vulich, who ended up forming Optic Nerve. He did Buffy and a bunch of other great stuff. So my roommate was Everett Burrell, and Everett Burrell was also the other half of Optic Nerve. But Tom Savini had said, we need two guys, and we should hire out of LA. We need some good muscle here. So Johnny had said, hey, I have two guys. So they brought us out. Everett was 18, I was 19. And it was our first location jobs. And right out of the gate, the first person I met was Greg Nicotero, who was working with Savini, just kind of as the shop supervisor and Tom's assistant, and doing a lot of the stuff that Tom, it freed Tom up so he could focus on the creative aspect. Mm-hmm. And Greg and I just became great friends right out of the gate. So when the movie ended shooting, I said, you should move to LA. And he thought about it, and he eventually moved to LA. And Greg, Bob Kurtzman, and myself were roommates for a number of years in Reseda, California. And we started working together. We worked at Mark Sjostrom's together on Evil Dead 2, and then we worked on Creepshow 2. And, we just did everything together. And there was a certain point in 1988 where we all decided, we met for dinner one night, and I said, we should really just form our own company, because we're really not making any money. We're not getting any credit whatsoever. but we're doing all the work. I mean, we're supervising, we're on set, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're picking up the slack, and or whatever. We were doing our jobs, but we knew we could do this for ourselves. So we decided to not work for anybody. We landed a very teeny job called Intruder, or also known as Night Crew, that Scott Spiegel wrote and directed. And we knew Scotty from Evil Dead 2 because he co-wrote Evil Dead 2 with Sam Raimi. So we did it for like $700, with the exception of we wanted a front card that said special makeup effects by Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger EFX Group. And they said, yeah, sure, that's great. We paid you $700. So we were able to break that catch-22 in the sense of having a front card on our first movie, and then establish the company. And then word spread, and we just were doing all these horror movies. And our big break came. We did a film for Disney called Gross Anatomy, which was about students in med school. It was Daphne Zanuga and Matthew Modine, and we had to make all these bodies, autopsy bodies. So we did that, and then Kevin Costner saw that, and he called us and he said, well, if you guys can do dead bodies, you can do dead buffalo. I'm directing a film called Dance with the Wolves. What do you guys think? And we're like, oh yeah, we could do that. Meanwhile, we didn't have a clue how to make dead buffaloes, but we just, did it and never turned back, and just said, everything, even though we thought like this is a pretty arduous task, we've always figured a way to do it. And that's how we are now. I mean, Greg and I are always like, geez, this is like a total dumpster fire, but we'll figure it out.
It's funny you say buffalo, because something that you guys have also done that's got, half of a bowl are like the creatures from Narnia.
Yeah.
And that's watching some of the special features, because that's on Disney Plus now. Yeah. Seeing the creation of something like that, because it's one thing to do Freddy and the amount of detail that goes into his face, but my God, man, like something like you're building a world with something, a project like Narnia.
Yeah, Narnia, it was an arduous task. It was massive. It was like an 8-month pre-production period, and then an 8-month, 9-month shoot in New Zealand. And I had a crew of about 40 people that were a mix of American, Australian, New Zealand, British, all over the place. And it was the hardest show I ever did, and it was exhausting, and we busted our hump on it, but I was very proud of everything. I had the best time. I got to work with a young unknown actor named James McAvoy, and which was super fun, and Tilda Swinton, who was wonderful, and it was just a great experience. It's my most favorite experience, actually. It's my most favorite film I've worked on, and it's my most favorite experience. But at the time we were doing that movie, we were prepping 2 other huge films. Greg was prepping Sin City, which is massive, something that had never been done before, the way that film was approached by Rob Rodriguez. And he was also prepping Land of the Dead for George Romero, and that was massive. And that was a really important show for him because George is his idol, and he grew up loving George and dreaming of working with George, and he had that opportunity on Day of the Dead and Monkey Shines. But this was really big to do zombies. First time Savini wasn't doing zombies for George Romero, KNB was, and it was really more Greg. So Greg took it all to heart and worked very, very hard at it. But yeah, it was a busy time at KNB. I think we ended up having about 125 people working at KNB at the time, which was ridiculous. We had to get a shop across the street, just even for parking. And it was pretty insane. It was a crazy, crazy time, but we got it done. And it was exciting, but KNB is always busy. We love doing things we're not comfortable doing. We don't look for the easy job.
Right.
We're lucky because through all these decades, because we're 32 years old now, we've had amazing people work with us, rather. I never say work for us, excuse me, that work with us, because, we couldn't do it without them. But amazing artists, amazing sculptors, designers, mold makers, fabricators, foam runners, mechanical people. It's really a big thing, and we've got a great guy named Kerry Jones, who's our shop supervisor the last 10 years, and he's just been a real great voice of reason, and a very, he has the shop's best interest, which is what's important, and a great crew. Everybody's great at the shop. We really look for quality people. That's what makes it successful.
When you guys were making those creatures for Narnia, something like the centaur where his mouth is moving, he's emoting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How challenging is that to have to rig up something that? I'm thinking of like the Ninja Turtles, where they've got like the 3 guys that are puppeteering the actual.
That's what it was like. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. We didn't have what that's called a Waldo system, which is something the Henson Company has created, which is brilliant. I wish I had one. I keep asking the guys who made it, like, how can I get a Waldo? I want to try a Waldo. But yeah, that the character you're speaking of is the Minotaurs, and like kind of the bull buffalo things, and they were tough. I mean, we had to build mechanical heads that actors could wear, and at that time we really didn't have the technology of small cameras. iPhone hadn't even come out yet, you know. So you know, now we stick an iPhone in there and the actors can see perfectly fine and things like that. But this was before that, and Shane Rangi, who played General Ottman, was blind as a bat and having to do action and run, and you know, there's some good outtakes of Shane running and then just falling flat on his face, poor guy, or running into a wall or something. But you know, we had to count off the paces, you know, from okay, you're 10 paces from the cliff, so don't go 11 paces. but they were all radio controlled, and I had a bunch of good guys, Rob Derry and Sonny Tilders and you know, the guys at the shop, and they were all radio controlled, just like the Ninja Turtles, essentially.
Right.
I would move and, you know, blink and ears and everything, and the actor would control all the gross body movement. But we did 175 individual characters for Narnia, and they all played at the end of the movie, and that's where we had like a massive amount of people. So I had this giant chart. It was basically like a giant call sheet every day that listed everybody and all the characters they would be involved with, which mostly were, you know, each makeup artist had at least 2 makeups to do a day, maybe more. And we just would turn around and just make people up, just nonstop, boom, boom. Like we get our fawns in first, and we get all our dwarves in, then we get all our satyrs in. And then like the next day I'd switch it up and let those guys take a rest, the actors. And I'm like, okay, we're going to start with the satyrs, and then we're going to do this. So it was a constant cycle, and we were doing 6-day weeks. Our hours were at least 20 hours a day working. So it was very exhausting. And Tammy Lane was my right and left hand, who has been with me for a long, long time. And you know, I couldn't do it without her. So, I mean, it's really like, you know, I luck out. We you know, Greg and I luck out. We have really amazing people that help bring it to life, and then we take all the credit. So it works out perfect.
The Land of the Dead film, you know, you talked about Romero and the aspiration of wanting to collaborate with him, but then, you know, you guys really came into the own as far as the zombie thing goes with The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I can remember seeing Robert at a convention I want to say it's like mid-break of season 1, or maybe it was right after season 1, and it was insanely popular, but it was not anywhere close to what it would evolve into. And, you know, he was more interested at that panel about talking about a comic book that he was doing for his kid.
Oh, yeah.
Superhero T-Rex.
Yeah, Super Dino or something like that.
Super Dino, right. And I got to imagine when you guys are coming on board for that, to do those zombies, you're stoked, but any kind of inkling when the ball started to roll that it was just going to become this ultimate just freaking phenomenon?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Greg is really the king of the zombies. I personally have almost nothing to do with the Walking Dead shows. It's all Greg. Greg is the mastermind. Mm-hmm. And Frank Darabont, who we had done Green Mile with and had known Frank forever and did The Mist with, you know, he brought us on the show. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he really loves working with KNB, loves working with Greg. They have a great, you know, relationship. And you know, Frank can say one word and we get it. You know, he can just be like, vampire. And we're like, I know what you want. So we understand Frank's sensibilities. So when we got, you know, hired to do Walking Dead, Greg did a series of concept art, and we did a full day of testing. And I remember Greg saying, one of the producers said, listen, this better work. If you guys don't make this work, this show's a bomb. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, one, that's a lot of pressure. And the show's going to be more than just the zombies, which it was because Frank Darabont's such an amazing writer.
Yeah.
And but luckily it turned out the combination of fantastic writing, fantastic acting, and amazing fresh zombies makeups, or walkers. Sorry, we don't call them zombies. The walkers. I've been reprimanded for saying that in the past. Are really unique. And through the last 10 years or 11 years of Walking Dead, Greg has helped create a brand. Because these characters, these walkers are real specific. Like, you don't see them in any other movies. You've not seen them in other things. Right. It's a constant redesign. And Greg comes up with a lot of the gags. He'll get a script and he's like, God, we've done that like 700 times. Let's come up with something different. Let's do this and let's do that. So, the guys in the shop are super creative and given a lot of freedom. But yeah, Greg has spearheaded it. So, I mean, when Frank left the show, Greg was given an opportunity to move up the ladder to be associate producer, and then become a producer, and then become an executive producer, and then direct. He was already doing some second unit for Frank Darabont, and it just was a logical thing. So, I mean, Greg is a super smart guy. He's a great person to be in partnership with, always has been, and he has a great story sense, and he can read something and go, yeah, this is all wrong. It should be this, this, and this. And then I'm like, God, yeah, that's way better. So he's, and he's very well respected over there and in the community. And yeah, I mean, but to answer your question, we had no idea. We were like 6 episodes. We'll see what happens. I mean, all these other networks turned the show down. I mean, AMC was the last one who said, yeah, this sounds cool. But I mean, Frank shopped it around to like ABC, NBC, CBS, all over the place, and HBO or whatever, and they all passed to like, nobody's going to want to see a zombie series. It doesn't have legs. And then here we are going into season 11 or what have you, and I mean, it's going, and it spawned 2 other shows, right? Yeah, Fear, and then the new one coming out, and yeah, I mean, people, I started to realize when I was doing a movie in Florida, and I went to like some surf shop, and there was like surfboards and, all the surf wear and all this. And then there was a wall of Walking Dead merchandise. And I'm like, what in the hell is that doing here? And I was like, I think this show is like so big that it's in a surf shop. And I was like, this is pretty crazy. I took a photo, I sent it to Greg, and he's like, God, I know it's a monster now. It's out of control. So AMC saw a great opportunity. They're really their one and only opportunity to bank on merchandise, and all that merchandise is based on stuff that Greg, and KNB created and spearheaded. So it's kind of fun to see, like, wear a shirt that, the guys worked on, built, or get a nutcracker or something we sculpted, a zombie nutcracker. That's something we sculpted at the shop that Jeremy Aiello did, and ends up being a novelty thing at Spencer's Gift or something like that. So,
you mentioned Robert scaring in a haunted house. One of the things, as we are, upon the airing of this, we're in the heat of haunt season. Yeah. Have you ever gone to Universal Horror Nights and seen something, a monster scare you through the haunted house, and you're like, damn, I made that guy, and now
I don't get scared by that stuff, but I do go to Universal Haunted, the Halloween Haunts, and we went last year because there was a giant creep show.
Yes,
one for Greg's show, Creep Show, the series, and that was super fun. I mean, I don't like people jumping out at me and stuff. I'm always like, Yeah. But I hit a really good haunt in Michigan, in Troy, Michigan, and when I was working on Oz the Great and Powerful, and that was good and scary and claustrophobic. The claustrophobic aspect. But it's fun to walk through one of these things and go like, oh yeah, that's we came up with that, and that's fun stuff. I like going to like toy stores and comic book stores and seeing stuff that we've created, and that's now a toy or a T-shirt or just something. And it's really kind of fun. I'm like, God, who would have thought that would ever have been popular, But you don't know. You don't go into a movie or a TV series and go, this is going to be the biggest thing ever. You're just like, okay, well, I just got to get through this the next 8 months. Yeah. Finish this, and then I'll move on to the next thing. And then it comes out, and you're like, oh yeah, geez, I forgot I worked on that. That's cool.
The Oz Great and Powerful, of course, James Franco, and you have kind of worked with that group multiple times. This is the End.
Oh yeah, with Seth Rogen and all those guys. Yeah.
What is that like on set? I gotta imagine there.
Yeah, I mean, I met Seth. Well, actually, Seth called us. He called us to work on This Is the End. That was the first time we worked with Seth. So Greg and I went and met Seth and his partner Evan at their company in Hollywood. And we were like, yeah, dude, we'd love to work with you. We're big fans. And they said, no, we want to work with you because we're big fans. I mean, and Seth said, we used to watch your movies when we lived in Vancouver and just like, God, I wonder if we'll ever get a chance to work with guys that make monsters like this. And here we were. So we built a bunch of stuff. I went to set. It was really fun. It's hard not to laugh because you have, Craig Robinson, you have Franco, you have Jonah Hill, you've got Seth. Seth's the one that's laughing the most. He's the culprit. And then you have Danny McBride. And he can just say hello and you start laughing. So we were shooting in New Orleans. It was probably the hottest summer there ever because when I walked from the trailer to the stage, which was probably like 200 feet, I was soaked. And it was such a miserable period to be in New Orleans. Oh, but we had creature suits and makeups and all this stuff. But it was just laughing and laughing. We could barely get through a take. I mean, because those guys are so bloody funny. And then Seth and Evan called us to work on Preacher. And I think we did 2 seasons or maybe 3 seasons of Preacher. I don't recall. And that was great. And then we did Neighbors, did some stuff for them in Neighbors. And, it's nice. They're really great guys. Seth Rogen is just awesome. I'm such a big fan of his as a person and as a filmmaker and stuff. And, and I like toilet humor. I think it's funny. And I think what Seth finds is funny. I find hilarious. So, it's very adolescent, but I enjoy it. But yeah, it's good. I've been very lucky working with great people. I mean, like I said, Seth and Evan are outstanding. I get to work with Sam Raimi. I've done many things with Sam, which has been a dream come true. And Quentin Tarantino. We've done all Quentin's movies through all the years, and Robert Rodriguez. And there's just some really cool people out there. There's a new guy to keep an eye on. His name's Little Marvin, and he's the creator of the show that I'm finishing up for Amazon right now. It's called Them. It'll be on, I think, in February, but you're going to start seeing October. You'll start seeing posters and trailers. It's whacked. And this guy grew up loving monsters and movies and just always dreamed of it and wrote and finally got a gig, sold his idea. And it's really been great. And he is just like going to gobble this up. He's going to be a new face of horror, I think, and it's really great, really nice to work with somebody that just is beginning doing this. So, but yeah, I mean, it's the relationships that Greg and I have, John Carpenter and, the late Toby Hooper and the late, Wes Craven and the late Stuart Gordon, I mean, these are guys that we all worked with for decades and just had the best time ever. And they were just such film fanatics. And that's really where it starts. It's not just horror, it's about film, and they love movies. And we all love movies. Greg and I was talking to him about an hour ago and we were just ranting off about what we've been watching lately, because he's in Atlanta right now and I'm in LA right now. But we talk every other day, to stay in touch and just catch up and yeah, it's cool. It's good. But he and I are like brothers. So, I'm looking for, the thing is I've never worked on set when he directs. So I really want to. I was just like, maybe I should come to Atlanta while you're doing Creepshow season 2. I'd love to see him on set as a director. I've only worked with him once, which was actually, I take that back, once when he was, he did his short United Monster Talent Agency, which kind of kicked off his directing chops. And I was obviously working on that for him. But yeah, I want to be on I want him to do a movie and I can go to set and just yell like, God, who wrote this piece of shit? Yeah, the director's an idiot. But yeah, it's cool. I'm super proud of him.
The thing I always love asking anybody who's been in the industry for a long time is, what was it that got you into it? And you who have made so many different kinds of monsters, creatures, killers, everything. What was it when you were a kid that you were like, I love horror movies, or I want to make monsters? What was it that got you hooked?
Yeah, it's the love of movies. My dad was a movie buff and he showed me everything. Like I remember he woke me up like in the middle of the night. It's like, there's a movie called Night of the Living Dead. You should wake up. Come on. And I probably was like 4 years old, for God's sakes, or 5 years old, watching it on television. I'm like, God, this is terrifying. But he introduced me to the classic monsters and Godzilla. You know, the Japanese monsters were really, really, really big, like especially Destroy All Monsters. That was my favorite go-to. But he really, you know, taught me about film and how film is made, and because he was in the film industry as well, in post-production sound, and take me to work, and I'd get to go to the studios and just dream of like, wow, I wonder if I'm ever going to work here. And I knew when I saw Planet of the Apes, I knew that there was somebody who did that for a living, like putting makeup on actors to make them look like those apes. And that's where my true interest grew. And you know, there was, before the internet, before YouTube, before any of that, there was very little literature, and I just really had to be resourceful, and I was artistic already, and I could draw, and I taught myself how to sculpt and paint and so forth, and I was just obsessed reading Famous Monsters. And then when Fangoria came out, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest magazine ever made. And then Gore Zone, and then I remember when we got our first cover, and I was like, this is like, who would have thought we would have ever had the cover of Fangoria? We were so overjoyed. You know, we bought like 3,000 copies and, you know, put them up on the wall. But yeah, I noticed my love of monsters in movies, which I still have. You know, I still love movies, and I love monsters. It's like I'm a monster obsessed. Like anytime I see anything, I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. Like, you know, I just love this. And, you know, and during this time of pandemic, it's given me a lot of opportunity to like do some sculpting and some mold making and making some masks for myself and just some Halloween stuff, you know, getting a jump on the Halloween season, you know, like making old, like monster pumpkins and stuff that I did. And, you know, it's been really fun, and it's allowed me to kind of go back to my roots and do stuff, because, you know, a lot of the times I don't have that opportunity at the shop because I'm always on set. And then when I am at the shop, Greg and I, we're always orchestrating and, you know, making sure things are getting done, and, you know, meetings and yada, yada, yada. But it's been cool, man. It's been a really great career. I mean, I've been at this almost 40 years. Yeah, 2022 will be 40 years that I've been working as a makeup effects guy. And then, like I said, KNB is 32 years. And yeah, I never thought, I would have never thunk it when I was a 18, 19-year-old kid, you know, like, oh, well, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And this is what I'm going to do.
Well, man, the amount of stuff that you've put out is stuff that is stood the test of time. Like, these are movies that are not, you know, you put into the DVD or the Blu-ray player and you're like, 1980 whatever, like, I'm not going to watch that. Like, these are characters that still are beloved by horror fans, you know, across the planet, and that's freaking awesome to name on.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's weird when, like, even things I think are like kind of like, you know, I'll post something on Instagram and people will write like, oh, I just watched that again, it's one of my favorite films. And I'm like, that's one of your favorite films, huh? All right then.
The road to the, speaking from, you know, coming out of school and learning the different aspects of production, what would you say is more challenging for you, the film aspect or a TV aspect where you're having to get these people made up, you know, in a case like, you know, The Walking Dead or any kind of episodic? I know you're working on the Orville right now. Mm-hmm. But when you guys are constant production and you're making those people up again and again, and that's kind of under a certain timetable, everything is, obviously, but TV, I would imagine, are you kind of under the gun a lot more in that sense, where you're doing something like episodically?
Yeah, no, it's under the gun. Everything's very fast and furious for TV. There's definitely a difference, you know, like, you know, one of the things I guess I like most about film is that I know when it's going to end. You know, it's like, okay, this is the start date, this is the end, this is the last day we're shooting. I'm like, great. TV sometimes has a tendency to go over a couple weeks, you know, and get going, and then you go back and fix it. But it's very fast and furious. And the thing is, we at KNB, we put in the same amount of effort for television characters than we would in feature film. So sometimes it's a little disappointing when you create this amazing thing, they shoot like one take of it and like, okay, moving on. And I'm like, That's it. I mean, guys, this has like been 4 months of building, and like, can it get a little like a little bit more love, you know? So that's a little hard to swallow. Not that I'm precious about what we make, because I'm not. You know, my main objective is making something super, super cool that works for the context of the film and what we've been asked to do. But I do also want it to be featured, you know, and I've had to go to the mat a couple times. I'm like, come on, no, shoot it like this. Let's do 2 more shots, and come on, please. And then it ends up in the show, and it's great. But yeah, no, it's a different animal. TV is very different, but it's a lot. But we do a lot of TV now, where we never used to do any television. Like we did 24 and Deadwood, and you know, that was very spread out. But now it's like movies. They still make those things, because it's like, you know, with all the streaming and all that, it's monumental. But the upside is, like on a show like Orville, because this will be the 3rd season that I'm going on to, 3rd year with Seth MacFarlane. It's so many. I get to employ so many makeup artists, you know, which I really, really love. It's super important to me to hire my union brothers and sisters, and we get to do a lot of cool stuff. And Seth has really, you know, trusted me in guiding the world of aliens, you know, and he loves what we do. Again, there's a guy whose language I understand. I understand his sensibilities and what he wants. And, you know, when we first started, stuff was a little bit bigger, and he's like, no, I want it kind of more like this, it's like more, you know, so that people can relate to it, you know, and friendly. And I'm like, okay, I get it. So we designed a color palette, you know, that they all live in, and a certain look and all, but it's hard. That's a hard show. It's season 2. I was doing 90 hours a week. And I almost like died. I was like, and that was part of the deal of coming back to do the 3rd one. I said, I'm not doing 90 hours a week. I said, this aggression will not stand. So like, we got to change this stuff to guys, which it has. And, you know, with the new protocols, you know, due to the COVID, you know, hours are a lot less. There's 10-hour shoot days, which that doesn't mean I work 10 hours. It means I work probably 14 hours, you know, 15 hours, but that's okay. I can do that. It's been a lot of years of getting up at 3 a.m. and not even thinking about it. People ask it, like, you know, how do you get up so early? I'm like, I've been doing it so long. I've been doing it almost 40 years. It's just like the alarm goes off. I'm like, okay, see you later. And I'm ready to go all day. And I come home and have a dinner with my wife, and
crank out. Yeah. The thing you just brought up, you know, COVID, Corona, it's changed everything. It is a new world that we live in. And in your profession, I would say, if you were going to do a top 10, yours is easily within, you know, that 1-2 spot of social distancing compliance, as far as how difficult that is. What has that been like to work with coronavirus?
Yeah, it's been hard. It's you know, my very first day on set was difficult, because I'm wearing my glasses. I had a visor on. I had double masks. I was in a full, like, not a gown, but like a doctor's coat, you know.
Yeah.
And no gloves though. And just, you know, you set up your area. It's all very sterile. It's all disinfected, and you know, we follow the rules that we came up with with our local 706, the Makeup and Hairstylist Union here. And that first day was tough. I mean, I ended up having to take my glasses off because they were fogging up and I couldn't see through everything. And I ended up doing the makeup kind of half blind. And it was really hard. Luckily, I have good muscle memory, so I could do the makeup, and I'd done it before. Second day was problematic as well. And then the 3rd day, I got to the actor and I said, listen, we've been doing this for 150 days now. I really am not gonna wear this shield anymore. Are you good with that? He's like, absolutely. And we're being tested every single day. So every morning you go to work and they stick a Q-tip up both your nostrils and touch your brain and jiggle it around like you're getting pissed. And then you know, you get your results like within an hour. And so we were very lucky. Everybody was negative the whole entire show. So it's a lot of being careful. It's, you know, you obviously, I'm going to get close to my actor when I have touch up and so forth, but I really try to refrain from, when we're on set, being near him. And, you know, we're all wearing masks, and it's hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to be this way at least for another year, you know. And even like, yeah, I mean, I think even after a vaccine, it's still going to be, things are going to be tough, you know. But I do think that there's some things that came out of this that are going to be implemented into our industry, overall film industry, and our brand and what we do, that I think are very positive things. I think it's going to make people really, really think about, being organized and hygienic, which we already are, but, and also make productions think about it too, and not like waste time, and like directors not show up without a shot list and a plan, and AD switching the schedule every 3.5 seconds. That stuff's going to go away. It just you can't work that way. It's just not feasible. And it's, even though, and things take a lot longer, I'd say it takes a while to get shit done. But it's better to spend the money and the time to get it right and make sure everyone's safe than somebody gets sick and then you shut down and then there's millions of dollars down the toilet.
Sure.
Adding an extra hour or two, or maybe adding 3 additional days of shooting to cover that downtime, far exceeds shutting down, until determined. So it makes sense. I'm glad they're not like stepping on a dollar to pick up a dime, mentality. So they seem to be good. And they meaning the studios and productions and so forth.
Well, man, getting ready for this talk with you, there's one thing on your IMDb page that I saw, and I was like, oh shit, he's working on this. And it's not a horror movie, but it very much is like that 80s kid, like, is this ever going to happen? And now it's happening. Space Jam 2.
Oh yeah, Space Jam: The New Legacy. Yeah, we did that. We started it last year and finished it this year. No. I'm sorry, we didn't finish it. We started it last year. Sorry, my years. It feels like one long day. Yeah, we did that last year. It was super, super fun. Had a great time. Malcolm Lee is the director, who is phenomenal, and LeBron James is starring in it, and he's outstanding. Really great guy, and he brought it, man. He knew his lines. He nailed it, nailed every take, and I was so impressed with him. And not that I shouldn't be. I mean, for God's sakes, LeBron James is the greatest basketball player on earth. But I mean, just outside of that, as an actor, he did a great job, and he's just a real professional. It was really refreshing, and yeah, we did a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be super cool, actually. Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of the first one, you'll totally love this because it's much better, and way better. And some really cool things are ahead. And I think that comes out next summer 2021. But I had a blast on it. My crew had a blast. It was months and months and months, and we had great producers on it. And yeah, the animation's going to be super cool. They have some really good tricks up their sleeves for this one, and yeah, so I mean, I do a lot of different things. Well, one thing I do actually, and this is what Space Jam was about, that I department head, and that means that I run the entire makeup department. That doesn't mean I just do creature stuff. So about 10 years ago, I started to diversify. I did a movie called Lone Survivor that Peter Berg directed. And he said, I want you to do makeup effects, but you're going to also department head, and you're going to do Mark Wahlberg. And I'm like, I don't know if I feel comfortable department heading. He's like, no, you're doing it. There's no discussion. And I'm like, eek. So I was nervous about it because I'd never done it. I always just kind of department headed creature stuff or makeup effect stuff. And I did it and I loved it. And so I kept doing it. So I department head movies, so that way I can keep control of everything. I don't have to contend with another department head who might want to put their 2 cents in, or they're running the department not the way I would run it. And I just have complete control. And production has really loved that, because they basically pay for one guy to do like 3 people's jobs. And I just enjoyed it. And through the years, I met up with a really great hair department head. His name's Johnny Villanueva, and I met him through Mark Wahlberg. And he and I have just done 14 movies together. And Space Jam, we were on Space Jam, and now we're finishing up Them. And we'll find something else after that. But like we'll do I mean, like when we were, I did like 8 or 9 Mark Wahlberg movies, and not all of those are makeup effects related. Like Daddy's Home there's no makeup effects, and Instant Family, I think I had like one time a kid gets a bloody nose. That was like my big exciting day. I'm like, finally I get to do something, But outside of that, it's just straight makeup, and doing Mark Wahlberg's makeup, and he's awesome. great guy. So I've been lucky. I mean, I've worked with great directors, great writers, great actors, great makeup people, great hair people. It's been a super fun career. I mean, even if today was my last day, I'd be like, yeah, I nailed it, man. It was a really great career. I'm just so grateful for it,
Well, with them being next on the horizon, we look forward to that. Can you give us, without getting into trouble, can you kind of give us a tease as to what they are as far as what
it's not about giant ants. So I was talking to Seth MacFarlane, and he's like, yeah, what's the name of the show you're doing? I'm like, them. Oh yeah, the giant ants. I went, no, it's not giant. It takes place in 1953 in Compton, California, and it's about the first black family that moves into an all-white neighborhood, and there's a supernatural horror element to it, and it's wackadoodle shit. And we came up with some great stuff. But what was nice is Little Marvin, who's the creator of that show, wanted to do things old school, but old school in the way he remembered them when he watched them in the 80s. So there's VFX, of course, but there's no VFX creatures or anything. Everything's practical.
Nice.
And we did it really, I did different versions until I found the right version we liked. And most of them were just really simplistic things, but it was just the way, because they weren't just so big, overblown things, that might take away from the storytelling. And some really cool stuff. There's puppets and there's gore and there's scary things. But it's really, the heart of it is the acting and the storytelling. The scripts were all 1,000%. Little Marvin and this guy David Matthews wrote it. Not Dave Matthews, a musician, another Dave Matthews. And because at first, when I first met him, I'm like, Dave Matthews, I love that guy's music. That's cool. And it wasn't him. So Amazon and Sony really were very supportive of the show. And we're going to start seeing I think in October we'll start seeing some posters and trailers, and it's really going to be good. I mean, it's very it's very racially disturbing, and that's a big thing. It's not the heart of the show. It's not like, oh God, I feel like I'm getting hit with a 2x4. It's not that. It's an element of the true terror, and it's really like the horror of being black in America in the 50s. That in itself is scarier than any creature I can come up with. It's just the fact of being black in America is a horrifying thing, and this show plays upon that terror, so it's going to be great, so I've got that, and then Space Jam summer 2021, and then we'll see what else comes up. But those are my big hits so far for that year.
Where can everybody kind of keep tabs on you, man? You mentioned you're posting your stuff to your Instagram or stuff.
I just do Instagram. So my name is @hoops511. So it's HOOPS 511, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of great stuff I'm posting all the time. Also, there's the KNB one. It's the official KNB EFX group. Check it out, because we're always posting cool stuff and behind the scenes, and it's cool. So I mean, I love Instagram because I like all the photos, and I like posting the photos with a little synopsis. That way I don't have to, Facebook was burning me out, even though I know Facebook owns Instagram. I kind of like, as the current president was making his way towards the White House, I just couldn't tolerate Facebook anymore, and listening to people just lambasting, just putting crap up there. And I'm like, this isn't the venue for this, but it is the venue for this. So I'm like, I'm shit canning out of this about 4 years ago. And Instagram I really enjoy, but that's the only social media. And but I'm always posting. I try to post, once a day or whatever, something kind of fun. It's not necessarily creature stuff. It could just be my wife with the dog, or a hummingbird, or who knows what, just mix it up. But that's it, and just, keep watching TV shows, and when the theaters open up, please go to the movies. We got to save the movie theaters. It's the most important thing,
Well, Howard, man, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. We will keep our eye on everything that you got going on with anticipation, and we wish you the best, man.
Thank you, and you guys too. And I look forward to doing this live in person, hopefully next year or something. So you know, we'll get back to it. This can't last forever. So we all know we're going to be back into the normalcy of life eventually. Just hopefully being a little more careful and respectful of one another and the world and environment and all that shit. So it'll be good. But thank you so much. This was great fun.